accidentally laughed when CEO threw my clothes at my husband to humiliate him. But then this happened. Hello, Reddit. My name is Alicia. For privacy's sake, only my name is real and the others are just made up but represent the people I'd be mentioning in the story. So, hi again, I'm Alicia and I'm 34 years old. I came here because I'm really confused and I really need your advice, guys. You see, the thing is, I am married. I've been for about 7 years, and our relationship is about to end or maybe has already ended, but I really don't want it to. The thing is, I thought that was what I have always wanted. For the longest time, I've always wanted Sam to be the one to end things with me, but he had always been clinging to our relationship and holding on to me. And now he finally isn't, and all of a sudden it feels like that isn't what I want anymore. It's like I just suddenly realized that I'm actually in love with Sam and don't want to lose him. I mean, he had always been that Sam that had always been available when I needed him. That Sam I had considered not manly because he wasn't exactly financially stable enough. That Sam that was always first to apologize even though I'm the one at fault. But now he's not that Sam anymore. It's like the Sam I knew just literally transformed into someone new, someone distant that I cannot even reach out to. And it's kind of my fault. No, not kinda, it's really all my fault. The thing that happened was that I had accidentally laughed when CEO threw my clothes at my husband to humiliate him. But then this happened. My husband had gotten so angry, which is very unusual of him. I mean, I've been married to him for almost 7 years, and I've known him for longer, but he had never gotten that angry before in all of our years of being together. He had gotten so angry and had left, then came back days later just to drop off divorce papers, and then had again left. I've been trying to get him to come back home so we could sort out things, but he has refused to talk to me since then. You see, my husband Dan is actually a lot older than me. He was already out of college and was working when I was still in high school. Dan lived close to my parents' place, and he had always liked me. I was smart and funny, and everyone liked hanging around me because of how popular I was. I schooled a bit far from my parents' place, so most of my friends did not know my parents. And I liked it that way because it allowed me to live the lie I wanted to live. My parents weren't exactly middle-class rich. They were very much average, and I only got into that school because of how smart I was. I was offered a scholarship throughout my high school. I had always envied the students in that school because they clearly had more than enough, and yet they weren't even easily satisfied. I was the quiet girl for a whole year when I first started with them. I studied their lifestyles, how to walk like them, and even how to brag and how to lie perfectly. I started making friends, and before long, I was popular for being one of the richest girls in school, even though in reality, I was the exact opposite. I perfected my lies very well, and it had no loopholes. I was happy while I was in school, because that meant I got to live the fairy tale life I've always dreamed of. It was the exact opposite back at home, though. My parents, though they loved each other so much, were so satisfied with their lives. It always pissed me off. I mean, Dad had the opportunity to actually earn a lot of money if he only accepted his friend's offer to become his partner. But Dad refused because he didn't want to be involved in any fraudulent acts, according to him, and my mom seemed to support that theory, which was really upsetting for me as their child. It wasn't even exactly fraudulent. It was just tweaking some figures at work and then taking the remaining for yourself. It was not like their boss was going to notice since he trusted my dad with everything so much. But Dad would never agree to take another man's money, except he worked for it. Back then, I didn't understand why he chose his integrity over money, and that had made me very ambitious. Luckily, I had the brains to go with it, but all my dreams almost crashed when I was done with high school, and I failed to get a scholarship into my dream university, and my parents didn't have the money to pay for my studies. Not that they didn't want to pay, but they wanted me to go to some nameless college and study something else because that was what they could afford. I didn't want that, and let's just say I was a very difficult child at that time. Sam, being our next-door neighbor, had always heard my parents and my arguments, so he had called me to his place one day and asked if he could sponsor my education, and I had gladly accepted the offer, but he had asked me to ask my parents first, and I knew that was going to be a strong no. But to my surprise, my parents had agreed happily for Sam to sponsor my education. They considered him the big brother I never had. My first year of university was so much fun. I was happy I had gotten into my dream school, and since Sam had lots of money then, he was able to pay for the most expensive dorm for me. It was easier then to continue my lifestyle of lies. To my new friends, my parents were in another country, and I was alone most of the time. So there was no question about where I lived before school because they filled in the rest with their heads, and I was satisfied that I didn't even have to lie further. When we finally were on a break, I went home and of course lied to my friends that I would be unreachable because I was in another country, and they had believed me. Sam was really happy to see me, and in some weird way, I was happy to see him too. Whenever my parents left for work, I'd go over to Sam's place and stay with him while he listened to my stories about school, and he'd also tell me about his work. He was on a month's leave then, so we spent quite a lot of time together. When I had to leave to go back to school, Sam was a bit sad because I had to leave, but I had promised to talk to him every chance I got. I didn't fulfill that promise because when I went back to school again, I resumed my fake life again, and so it was hard to think about anyone else. It was until my third year in university before anything romantic happened between Sam and me. I mean, by then I had gotten dating experience. My first boyfriend was Jason, a super rich, super annoying, and super rude guy whom I dated to boost my reputation and to cement the fact that I could attract any guy I wanted. Jason wasn't any more in love with me than I was with him. We both just wanted to satisfy our individual goals. Though I don't still know till now what his was, mine was just to get some money and fame through him, and it totally worked. I didn't sleep with Jason. He wanted to, of course, but I didn't want to lose my virginity to someone like that, and he got angry about it and broke things off with me. I eventually had to go home for another break, but this time I didn't go over to Sam's place per usual. I just stayed indoors all day that day. When my mom had told Sam the next day that I was around, he had been surprised I hadn't come over to say hi, and he had texted to ask if he had offended me. I had ignored his text, and when he had come over to my parents' house after he was back from work to say hi, I hadn't come out of my room and just stayed there until he left. Mom had been suspicious and had asked me what happened, but I had nothing to say, because nothing did happen. Eventually, after a whole week of avoiding Sam, which was literally hard because we lived next door, I decided to go to his place and end our little avoiding party that I started. I knew Sam was going to be home that day because it was his off day, and I waited for my parents to leave the house before going to Sam's place. His door was locked when I got there, but I let myself in since I knew where he hid his extra key. Sam had been surprised to see me and had asked why I was avoiding him for a week, and I had lied and told him I had some things going on personally, and I had wanted to sort out my emotions first before going about. Sam accepted my excuses and had invited me to join him for breakfast. From there, we went back to our normal banter, and I told him things about school, of course leaving out the part where I lied about everything about me. When I mentioned that I had a boyfriend, I noticed the shift in Sam's mood, and it was then I realized that Sam actually had feelings for me. He had never brought home a girlfriend, despite the fact that he lived alone. All of his family, his mom, dad, and 3 younger siblings, lived in a different state, and so if he had wanted to be promiscuous or anything like that, he had the chance. Besides, he was already a full-grown man. I tried to pry and ask about his girlfriend, but he said nothing, just ignored what I said, and tried changing the topic. I decided there and then to test him to see if he truly had feelings for me. I had moved in, and before he could understand what I was doing, I kissed him on the lips. Sam had been surprised, and he was just speechless and stared at me. I smiled, because that literally just confirmed his feelings for me. If he had really seen me as his sister, as my mom thought, he would have scolded me for what I did. From then on, Sam and I just automatically fell into a relationship. But I guess I really took Sam for granted. Well, not guessing, I did take him for granted. Whenever I was in school or with my friends, I didn't respond to his texts or calls. I only called him whenever I was less busy, and that was a few times. Sam still loved me, even though I was literally playing around with our relationship. 6 months after I graduated, Sam asked me to marry him, and I accepted his proposal under the condition that we moved to another new place entirely, and he agreed. We got married back home, though, with just our friends and families there to witness. Sam bought us a house with his savings in another town 6 hours away from where we stayed before, and we moved there. Things weren't exactly the same anymore as they were before, probably because Sam had to quit his job so we could move away, and he had to get another one. That one wasn't as good as the previous one he had, and we had to buy a lot of things too for our new house. Sorry, I meant Sam had to. I didn't contribute anything to all this. After getting everything we needed to start our new lives and also blend into society, we almost had nothing. Sam had to take out a loan to do some other things, so half the pay he got was poured into paying back the loan he took out. I was not satisfied sitting around doing nothing, especially because there was really nothing to do. Every day was the same old routine, and I was getting bored with it. Every day Sam went to work, I would clean the house and do the other basic chores, and then cook dinner and wait for Sam to get home before we ate. He'd gist me about his day, and whenever he asked about mine, I would just shrug because I had nothing really to talk about. Eventually, I started bugging Sam that I wanted to get a job, and he agreed. But everywhere I went, they wanted someone with experience, and that I didn't have because I was literally fresh out of school. I looked for a job unsuccessfully for a whole year, and I was so frustrated that period, and used that almost all the time against Sam. Sam didn't mind that I was being unfair, though. He would still apologize despite knowing I was the one at fault, and somehow, instead of making me feel guilty, it made me angry. I thought then that he was just trying to make me into a bad person. Finally, I got a job, but at the same place that Sam worked. He had casually told me while he was telling me about his day that his boss wanted to get a new secretary because he fired the old one for not being efficient. Sam had told me that he would have allowed me to apply there, but he had always known the boss to be a very short-tempered person with an aggressive behavior. He didn't want to see me getting yelled at all the time in the office and being unable to do anything about it. I agreed with him then, but I went behind his back to apply for the job, and I was invited for an interview. I still did not tell Sam about it until he saw me sitting amongst the job seekers waiting to be interviewed. He had been shocked, but I didn't want to jinx my interview, so I turned and pretended like I didn't know him. I got interviewed later and went home, hoping I got the job because many people with different experiences applied for the position. Sam had gotten home and asked why I had gone behind his back to apply for the job he had clearly told me he didn't want me doing. I dismissed his worries as nothing and even told him I wasn't sure I was going to get the job, that I just applied just to pass time since I was literally jobless. Sam said nothing about it again until I was called up 2 weeks later that I got the job. I was so happy, but Sam clearly wasn't entirely pleased. When he tried to say so, I got angry and accused him of not wanting me to be happy. Before long, Sam gave up and allowed me to do me. Not that I was going to do anything else. Well, luckily for me, the boss had to travel out of the country to set up another branch, so he was gone for about 4 years. So there were no complaints whatsoever about my work. I made Sam promise not to let people at work know we were married, especially the bosses. Eventually, some of our colleagues found out, but were willing to keep the secret for us, so the executives in the company didn't find out. One time, my friends from school called me to come over to their place for a birthday party of a friend of ours, Cindy. I made up some lies about my husband being on a work trip, and that I was accompanying him so I couldn't go. The real reason I didn't want to go was because I knew that I would have to tell Sam the truth, and he might want to tag along because he had always wanted to know my friends from back school, and I obviously couldn't have that. So, I lied and avoided going to the party, and seeing their post on social media about the party made me kind of wistful. I started to get uncomfortable with living like I did, paying off debts and never having enough money to buy myself new clothes, particularly designers. I was not satisfied with the life I had anymore because I've always wanted more, even as a child. So yeah, our CEO came back finally after 4 years, and Sam had been worried because of me. He didn't want the boss yelling at me, but I managed to persuade him that it was nothing, and that I was probably going to do better than the former secretary. I did, of course. I was very smart, so for a whole month after the CEO was back, I was very professional and definitely good at my job. That was when the CEO started to notice me. We had a project we were working on, and we took days to work on it. So most times, I was usually home at very late hours and left very early, even before Sam. Sam tried to complain about the long work hours, but I discarded his complaint as nothing, especially when payday came and the bonus I got was extremely large. I had to go into the CEO's office to inform him because I thought of it first as a mistake, and he told me it wasn't, that it was because I did such good work. I didn't tell Sam about the bonus, though. I wanted to keep the money for myself. I knew that Sam would never take the money from me, and would even suggest I keep it for myself, because I deserved it, but I just selfishly wanted to keep it to myself. 3 months went by, and the CEO had to go back to the company he had established so he could sort out some issues that needed him, and he told me that I was going with him. I couldn't not go. He was the boss, and besides, he didn't even know I was married, so there was no valid excuse I could give for not wanting to go. And then again, I started to think of it as a good idea because I'd get to really travel out like I had always liked and also lied about. When I told Sam about it, he hadn't been too happy to hear it, especially because I didn't even know when I'd be back, especially since the boss had gone and spent 4 years before. He told me to tell the CEO that I was actually married and that my husband didn't approve of my traveling, but I didn't want to, and we argued about it. Sam tried several times to persuade me not to go, until the night before I actually had to travel, and he brought it up again. I was so upset with him that I slept in the guest room and woke up earlier than usual. I got ready for the trip and left before he even had the chance to try and make things right between us. Sam left me several texts, but I didn't reply to any of them. I went alone on the trip with my boss. I had been the one to book a suite for the CEO at one of the most popular hotels in that country, and I, of course, booked one room for myself at a smaller, cheaper hotel that was closer to the company so I could save up the cost of transportation. But I was very surprised when my boss ordered that I book a suite for myself in the same hotel as him. I did, but I booked one smaller and not on the same floor as my boss. The next day, he had driven us to work himself, and we had gotten busy. By evening, I was pretty much exhausted and really hungry. I had been hoping to go up to my room and just order something so I could eat and sleep, but to my greatest surprise, the CEO had taken us to a very expensive restaurant to eat. I had never been to a restaurant as expensive as that. It was like dining like royalty, and it was everything that I had imagined, and more. I was giddy with excitement. I secretly took some pictures of the food and of the place when the CEO was distracted with a call. After dinner, we went back to our various suites in the hotel, and I had my beauty sleep. Everything about the room was so alluring. Within a week, we were done with what we came for, but we still stayed back. I didn't know why, but I couldn't ask because he was my boss. The CEO took me on a tour of the city we were in. It was really beautiful. Then we'd dine like royalty and then retire to our rooms. That was what we did every day, and I thought it was amazing because I got to live the life I've only ever lied about. I was living the real thing, and it felt amazing. It was until I was taking a stroll down the hotel lobby that I heard 2 staff gossiping about my boss and me. They were saying that they thought we were involved, but the separate rooms were just the confusing part. Somehow, from there, the idea began to form in my head. At that point, I was hardly paying any attention to Sam. He was the least of my priorities. He usually called me, but I was always making excuses about being tired and wanting to rest or being busy with work. Whenever we did speak, it was short and not the usual conversation you'd expect a married couple to have. So after the gossip I stumbled upon, I started to really imagine what it would be like if the CEO and I were together. It literally meant that I wouldn't even have to lie to my friends anymore, and I'd get the luxurious lifestyle I've always wanted. After a month of staying there, the CEO, were invited to a party, and it was a +1 party, so he took me alongside. He gave me his card to shop for the perfect dress, and I did. I had bought the most expensive dress I could find, along with matching heels and a purse to go with it. I even got matching earrings and a necklace to complete the look. I was like Cinderella with a godmother, Except in this case, the godmother was my boss. We went to the party and people assumed I was his girlfriend, and the CEO didn't correct that, which surprised me. I was nervous throughout the party because most of the people there were very important people that I'd never dreamt of meeting. But despite that, I still enjoyed the evening. I ate different things that I don't even remember the names of, but all I remember is that they came in different shapes and sizes. I took 2 glasses of champagne before the CEO asked me to dance. When we had finished dancing, I drank another glass of champagne in such a rush that it made me feel slightly dizzy. The reason I drank the champagne so quickly was because when the CEO and I had been dancing, the chemistry between us was just something else, and we had almost kissed if not for the music stopping at that moment before it changed to another, but that was enough to jolt us back to our senses. When we got to the hotel and went to our various rooms, I heard a knock, and thinking it was room service, I opened up, only to find the CEO. He told me that he didn't want to be alone that night. We talked late into the night. It was surprising because I never knew the CEO could talk and also flirt that much. We ended up sharing the kiss we didn't share at the party. We did more than kiss too. We had sex that night. The sex was nothing like what I had with Sam and was pretty disappointing, but I didn't show him that, and I pretended like it was the best. He felt really pleased that he was able to satisfy me, and he even ordered flowers and a pair of diamond earrings to be sent up to my room the next day. Honestly, seeing the gift reminded me that I was supposedly married, and I felt really guilty, but then I just wanted to keep the gifts because of how expensive and sparkling they were. Sam called me that morning, but I ignored his calls, not because of my guilt. We stayed for another 3 weeks, and it was filled with receiving lots of gifts from the CEO. After each time we had sex, he'd get me gifts. Most times they were very expensive bags or clothes. Sometimes they were shoes, necklaces, and other things like that. Those were things I could only ever dream of owning. I was really happy with the gifts. But when it was time to go back, I remembered my husband and how we lived in the same house. He would find out about the clothes, bags, shoes, and jewelry sooner or later, and I had to think of something to tell him, so I arranged for my box to be brought in after I had gone. My intention had been to lie and say a friend sent it over as gifts for me. When I got home, Sam hadn't been very happy with me. Apparently, I ignored most of his messages and calls, and also, the picture of my almost kiss with the CEO made headlines in an article. My heart skipped a bit, and I lied on the spot about the cameraman manipulating the picture from his angle, making it look like that. Sam reluctantly believed me, and when I had settled in, because it was a Sunday, so we were both home, I told Sam about my friend, who wanted to send me some accessories the next day, and that she was only sending them because I called and told her I was already home. Sam looked like he wanted to say something, but he changed his mind and said nothing. He just stepped out and didn't come back to the house until very late in the evening. The CEO and I continued our affair, but I tried to hide it from Sam, especially because we worked in the same company and we also lived together. But it was kind of difficult because of the luxurious gifts the CEO was sending me. Sam, though, at one point, stopped asking about the gifts I was getting and instead ignored them. Well, I guess the truth cannot stay hidden for long because eventually my truth came out, and it turned out very ugly. So one very hot afternoon while I was at home, it was my day off, and I was just relaxing, trying to do some house chores. I even decided to cook Sam dinner because it had been so long since I did so. For some reason, I wanted to make him happy, and I thought that cooking him nice meals and listening to his work stories like I did in the past would probably get us past the new stumbling block that seemed to define our marriage. But as I was trying to wash the clothes, I heard a knock, and curious about who it might have been, I went to check the door. I was shocked when I saw the CEO right in front of my house. I mean, my house where I lived with Sam, his employee, my husband. When I opened the door nervously, he walked in and looked around the house like it was some piece of trash. And of course, he cited the small picture that had Sam and me on our wedding day. I suddenly became sweaty, and I tried to explain the reason I hadn't told him about my marriage, but he just laughed and told me he had always known about my marriage. Apparently, he didn't have the habit of employing people without checking their background first. I was shocked. So he knew all this time and had still been sleeping with me. When I asked him why he had an affair with me, if he had always known I was married, he told me that I clearly had not rejected his advances when he made them. At that moment, I felt ashamed of myself, and I couldn't say anything else because I knew he was telling the truth. He moved around the house, picked up the picture, looked at it, and then dropped it carelessly, splintering the surface a bit. And then he moved over to the washing machine that was still off, picked some of the clothes in the basket, and asked me if they were part of the ones he got me. I shook my head to give a negative answer. He kept talking about how he knew my husband clearly wasn't enough for me, how tempting he knew his money was to me, and how I continued sleeping with him while still married. I felt insulted, but I knew he was speaking the truth, and there was no way I could defend myself, so I just stood there while he insulted me thoroughly. I hadn't even known that Sam had walked in at that point because I was backing the door, and when the CEO had walked in, I had forgotten to close the door. The CEO, upon seeing Sam first, smirked and continued talking about our trip out of the country and how he seduced me. It was when Sam had walked further into the house that I noticed him. I began to panic and tried explaining the situation, but it was clear the two men weren't listening to me. I have never seen Sam so angry before. He looked so murderous at that moment, and he had asked the CEO to leave, but the CEO clearly had other plans and stayed where he was, recounting our sexual relationship to Sam, telling him how he, Sam, couldn't obviously meet my needs, and I had looked elsewhere as the gold digger that I was. He had picked up the clothes by the washer again, but this time, instead of looking at them as he did before, he threw them at my husband, clearly to humiliate him all the more. He told him that he couldn't even buy me expensive dresses as he could. Do you know what I did then? I laughed. No, not what you think. I had been panicking so much that when the CEO threw the clothes at Sam, what came out of my mouth was hysterical laughter, because I knew somehow that I was doomed. But Sam looked at me, and then he turned and left the house. The CEO left after he did, telling me he didn't want to see me at his office too, because he was firing me as he had no need for me anymore. It's been a week, and the only time Sam came back to the house was to drop off the divorce papers. I've called several times and texted him, but Sam wouldn't reply to any of them. I really want to get Sam back. I don't want to lose him, guys. Please, what do I do? Update. Hello, Reddit. It's been the most torturing, longest 1 month. I've been trolled so much that I cannot even step out for fear of being recognized, despite the fact that I didn't even release much information about me here. The insults from you guys have just affected my mental health so badly that I feel like you guys only have to know me physically to come harm me. The crazy thing about this whole situation is I have absolutely no one to talk to. When my parents heard everything I did to Sam, they wanted absolutely nothing to do with me. I thought it impossible to disown your only child, but guess what? My parents did, and they're sticking to it. Even my soft-hearted mom thought I had gone too far. I'm so upset. I'm so angry at myself. During this 1 month, I've self-reflected so much that now I understand that I've been a monstrous wife to Sam. I have never once been someone there for him, even though he had never been anything else but there for me. I have nagged and hated him. I have insulted him, degraded him, made him feel small. I have made him feel like he wasn't worth it when the truth is actually the opposite. I am the one who should have been grateful to have him. I am the one who should have adored him and loved him like there was nobody else on earth to love. Right now, there's nobody on earth that can even love me. I have wounded Sam with my words. I have caused him mental scars with my actions, and I think I'll forever pay for the consequences of my actions. Now, all the expensive dresses and bags and shoes I got are so meaningless to me. They upset me so much and remind me of how disgustingly I behaved. I have now burned some of them, and I sold the rest at very cheap prices just to get them off my hands. Everything I have ever had was from lying. I got friends from lying, I got a job from lying too. Sam was the only real thing in my life, and funny how the only real thing in my life I still couldn't keep. I feel like the worst human on earth. I know now that if I were married to me, I may not have stayed or endured the marriage as much as Sam did. He was the perfect man for me. He loved me with all my flaws, And I stupidly was still brave enough to treat him so poorly just until I was able to break him into so many pieces that I don't even know how to put the pieces back together. I've lost him. I've lost Sam forever. I know a lot of people, when they lose something, wish to get it back, but I dare not even wish because I was the one who pushed Sam to the point of no return. Now there's no redemption for me. I'm lost. I'm drowning in the world of darkness I put myself in, and there's no one to pull me out. Sam is not here to pull me back out. Update. Hello, Reddit. This is my last post here, and I just wanted to tell you guys how lucky you are that you're not in my shoes right now. Well, I know you feel good cursing at me and insulting me because of how stupid and bad you guys think I am. I wish I were you right now and not the one in this awful situation, but I am, and there's no overriding it. A piece of advice? Don't ever be in my shoes. Thanks and goodbye.